people didn't understand the organic word itself, in spite of the whole country before independence, before Green Revolution, was only consuming organic. India has always been an agro-based economy. Now, if our economy has to be a topmost economy, preferred economy in the world, agriculture is the sector, is the base, is the pillar which has to be strong and sustainable. Whenever you set up, you put up an estimate for the costs, always make it 3 times. And whenever you put up an estimate for the profits, half, make it 50%. So if that is fine, then the business is viable.
So welcome, Mr. Rajan, to Vision Board Season 2, and thanking you for taking out time to join this conversation. So to start this conversation, Rajan, that first I'd like to know that I believe that initially you started your career with a corporate side, and then you started this Greenobar organization. So what basically inspired you to start this business?
So I'll just go back. I graduated in year 2005. And when I was in 10th standard, I come from a business family.
Okay.
But my father had passed away in 2004. And prior to that, when I was in 10th standard in 1998, I dreamt of having my own business. So probably the environment, I was in a boarding school, but still the environment where I was living, I come from a city where it's a business city, Rajkot. At that time, people always preferred to have their own business. So that seed was always ingrained in my mind. In 2005, I graduated. I started working because I was the only male member in the family at that time. And I started working with a perspective to gain an experience of working in a corporate. But it was short-lived, because not only my dream of having my own business, but my nature was such that I was not able to work under someone. I'll be honest. And in 2007, I started my first venture. That was an exotic juice bar come food outlet in the name of Juice, JOOS.
Okay.
It was in we had a founding team of 4 people. Myself, Johnson Quatros from ISB, Siddharth Jaiswal from IIM Ahmedabad Agribusiness, and Irfan also from IIM Ahmedabad. We had one outlet in high streets of Ahmedabad. Some of the juices were not being sold anywhere in the world. It was that exotic. And we were doing well. Somehow the partnership didn't go well. We had big dreams of scaling it up. In 2000, I ran it till 2010. 2 of us quit. And then situation was such that my family shifted from Rajkot to Ahmedabad. And I had to started working again to support them financially. So 2012, I started working again. I worked with Aditya Birla Group for 3 years. Was a territory manager for Gujarat and Rajasthan. Now that was the time. Every single day the business was stable. I was doing. The work was stable. I was doing good, performing well. But every single day I had this thought: what next?
What next?
Yeah. In terms of starting my own venture again. So the first venture when I started, there was no jargon called startup.
Yeah, during that time, this is a new phenomenon. That time is a.
So the second venture when I started, the jargon just was born called startup. And every single day I was thinking. So I read this book called Hot, Flat and Crowded, which my friend had. I borrowed from a friend. It was by Thomas Friedman. Now this is the inspiration of the current venture. So this Thomas Friedman is an environmental journalist. And prior to being an environmental journalist, he was an international journalist, and he knew all the kings, the heads of the country, of all the countries of the world, whether it is monarch, king, queen, president, prime minister. He knew everyone personally. And he then converted to being an environmental journalist. And everything mentioned in the book inspired me in terms of, there were facts and figures why a country needs to go sustainable. Like a country in Middle East, which shifted from being non-sustainable to sustainable, not only became economically stable, but also the culture shifted, transformed from being non-open to open, women empowerment, happier, satisfaction, all those things. And with graphs and facts and figures, not just, opinions or comments. There are many other anecdotes and examples. Then I thought that if that can transform the country, then it can transform an individual also. So doing a business was my motive, but why not to do a business that can, give you a peaceful sleep? Anyway, entrepreneurs do not have a peaceful sleep, especially in the initial years.
Yeah.
So the thing they would need is a peaceful sleep. So at the end of the day, in spite of, all the struggles, if you go to bed, you know that you are doing something good for the world and the environment.
Yeah.
So then in 2015 July, I vividly remember I took a break for 15 days from my I went to Rishikesh. I took a break for 15 days because, Rishikesh is supposed to be, the vibes are such that, you can, think peacefully what to do. I was just I was just thinking of leaving my job, corporate job. And before that, I wanted to take a, peaceful break. Thinking that, the step that I would take at the age of 35 cannot go wrong. So I was just thinking what to do, and I already thought that it should be an environmental space. So during the break, I thought of, giving an alternative choice of living to an Indian family that is healthy and an eco-friendly life. And I ran a survey in my close circle of, what if a platform that provides an eco-friendly and healthy choice of living a complete life, that could be food, personal care, baby care, recycled, art and craft, bamboo, health, everything. How would that be? So the feedback I got was, positive. Some of them were thinking that, if I provide organic products, they are costly and all those things, but that every industry, especially when they're in a nascent stage, all those challenges are there. But there is always a crowd. And that time in 2016, when I started, there was a niche crowd which was accepting these products. But it was the right time probably. So that was the inspiration behind starting Greenobazar.
But do you think that India as a country, that awareness around the sustainable products or being sensitized towards the environment, it's only limited to maybe in metro cities, or it's also right now going down to tier 2, tier 3 cities as well?
So when I started, so in 2016, and if you say a few years back then, yes, it was limited to metro cities. And when I started, it was limited to metro cities because the word organic in itself was a luxury word. The cost of production of, organic farming is higher. The harvest is lesser. So the affordability is amongst the upper middle class and upper class. People didn't understand the organic word itself, in spite of the whole country before independence, before Green Revolution, was only consuming organic. It was a traditional method of farming. Still, people didn't understand the word organic. So yes, it was limited to the metro cities then. But now, due to the information technology, the digitization, the digital, transformation, people have accepted, adopted, and grown to even, uneducated people asking for, who are health conscious, asking for organic products. It is ran down to tier 2 and tier 3 cities also. The farmers initially who were educated and aware were growing organic, but now even the farmers who are illiterate are shifting to that mode of, because they know the ill effects of, the farming, non-organic farming. So that is all because of the technology and digitization of the economy.
So you just mentioned technology. So now technology, if you can give a couple of examples, that what are the areas that you feel that today's farmer, they're using technology to increase their productivity?
Wonderful. I mean, back in 2018, government had announced incentives for the farmers to, shift to organic. Apart from that, increasing the productivity. The agri-tech currently, if in 2022, is one of the topmost industry where the investors are willing to invest for the, transformation of the agriculture. Government had tried, to change the policies. Will not, go into what was right and wrong, but the India has always been an agro-based economy. Now, if our economy has to be a topmost economy, preferred economy in the world, agriculture is the sector, is the base, is the pillar which has to be strong and sustainable. Now, if I say sustainable financially and economy, yes, but if I say sustainable, environment friendly also, then that is the future. Because when I started this business, another inspiration behind starting this from the book Hot, Flat and Crowded was that there are two topmost priorities of the world apart from economy is health and environment. If health and environment are sorted for a country, then the country will be happy, content, and the culture will be open, like Bhutan, you can say, or like Denmark, which has declared itself to go 100% organic. So if you see, I mean, those countries, measure their happiness index, and the economy is consequential rather than economy being the primary measurement. At the end of the day, all our careers or all our family goals end towards happiness, but our goals are always materialistic. So sustainable, way of farming or any other way, if government focuses, it will lead to the ultimate goals of the country, that is economy.
Yeah, and yeah, we can also see that big corporates and even the MNCs, they also started talking about the sustainable products, driving the awareness. And I believe that those awareness also gradually drill down to the normal consumer and understand the importance not only to use the sustainable product, but also in our day-to-day life, how we can contribute or give back to the nature. That is also very, very, very important. But right now we are seeing that, the climate change and all this stuff happening. And, we can see even in India what's happening. Now, that, Mr. Rajan, that you mentioned your like initial days of most of the founders, you were, sleepless nights. And I believe that when you started, you were completely bootstrapped.
Right.
So, that what are the biggest challenge, that you face being a bootstrapped?
So, this was my second venture. So I learned from my first venture what not to do rather than
What
what
not
to
to
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was very important, So I'd already drafted few strategies that, I thought that the bootstrap capital that I'll invest in of myself will be limited. If that I exhaust and I do not turn positive, then I'll close it. So I was that rigid, and it made sense. The whole idea made sense to me. So I started with the X capital, and thinking to start with an X capital, I thought that what resources I'll need is first the team. So I started, having a very low cost but a talented team, recruiting interns, nurturing interns. It's not just exploiting them, because the whole motive of the business was going sustainable. So,
Yes.
there was no point of exploiting them. Luckily, things fell in place. I got a first offer from IIT Kharagpur student wanting to do internship with me without any stipend. You won't believe he was getting offers of stipend internship some elsewhere, but he wanted to work with just a newborn startup. And I somehow managed to, gather all the resources at a low cost. I kept my cost down. I had set a target of, going break even in first year, if not through the mainstream goal that the startup was like e-commerce. I'd started all India, providing the services of delivering products. but I'd also thought of, doing corporate gifting, B2B. And
Mhm.
somehow, I thought that if I do all these things and not only focus on e-commerce when the e-commerce was the ultimate goal, then I'll at least break even. If I am able to sustain the first 2 3 years, then I can raise capital. And
Yeah.
if I can raise capital, then I can, yes, make it through. So that was the whole idea of going through after the first venture experience, and taking into practice of what not to do and what to do. I implemented, and I went slow because I knew that the funding will not be easy. It will
Yes.
take its own sweet time. Luckily, there was a time in 2018 when I thought of closing it. I'll be honest. uh,
Mhm.
Government startup scheme was there in Gujarat, and Gujarat startup industry or ecosystem was very strong and
Mm.
swift. So I was incubated with GUSEC also, but the the startup scheme, uh, you know, uh, I mean, transmitting the startup funds to the startup was not happening swift. So I went directly to the government. I sat with the IS officer, and they were positive. And I was the only person who went directly and went through. So I got a capital of 2 lakhs, and that helped me to sustain for further 3 years, because that capital came at the right time to give me immediate revenue before the season starts. I mean, the
Mm.
winter season starts, when that is the most season where the buying of the organic products happen.
Okay. Okay. So now I believe you got funded for the
That was
Greenobazar.
a very grant. It was, we are not funded. I'm still bootstrapped. In
Mm.
2020, there was another big swift that happened, turn that took.
Mm.
We merged with another brand called FarmSay. It was a private label brand,
Okay.
e-commerce platform. And the store, we had two stores. Store was always Greenobar.
Okay.
We grew 3 times in terms of revenue, in terms of team.
Mm.
We were profitable. By the way, well, let me tell you, we were profitable from 2017 to till date.
Mm. That's
2022, the goals of the co-founders didn't align, in spite of we being incubated with India Accelerators, which is a growth accelerator based out of Gurgaon. Then we again demerged just a month back, and now I'm again running the same company, Greenobazar and Greenobar, myself. Greenobar we started in 2021. It's a zero waste juice bar, where one can pedal a bicycle, make
mm.
its own juice, and then drink. Juices are served in uh, fruit, fruit, fruits, skins, or coconut shells. So again, I'm solo right now, and 6 years it is. And since 2017, fortunately, we are in profit. There are some financials to be settled because of the demerger, but I think things are fine, and I can move forward from here.
That's a great news. Now, on the same, the content, like how do you see the, that traditional business versus the, the new age startup that, all of us are a part of it ecosystem? That, like if you see traditional businesses that, okay, they used to take loans, business loans and all, and new age is like funding. So what's your, point of view, in this particular, ecosystem? Uh,
This is an interesting question. I mean, the mode of funding for a business previously were debt only, or
mm,
friendly loan, or
yeah.
gathering capital through the inner circle. Now,
Mm,
what has happened is that when a company makes it big, it gets sweet capital from the secondary market. That is, when it is listed on the bourses.
yeah.
But prior to that, what if the company is valued like it is valued when it is listed and gets the funding? So this is not an new way, but it is technically it is redefined, and the investors comes into the startup because of the vision that they see, the team that they see, the people who are running that they see, the idea, unique idea, and the scalability that they see will
Yeah.
give them a good and short term returns at a
Yeah.
risk. So the investors come in early to the business rather than just being when they are listed. So the whole, ecosystem has transformed in a way that the business which used to take traditionally 10 years or 15 years list and then get valued, now it can happen in 1 or 2 years if the idea is unique.
Yes, yes. There's the biggest change, that we can all can experience now. Like within 5 years, like earlier, one business generally, it used to take 2 decades. Now it's
Right.
happening in 5 years or 2 years or 3 years because of the
Absolutely.
right funding. But what would be your best financial advice that you want to give it to any bootstrap
Right.
founder? Like,
This is a good question. So, when I started my first venture, I happened to meet a very serial entrepreneur,
mhm,
Mr. Sunil Handa, who is
mhm,
owner of ex-owner of Claris Life
mhm,
Sciences and owner of Core Group. So he had told me a formula that whenever you set up, you put up an estimate for the costs, always make it 3 times, and
mhm,
whenever you put up an estimate for the profits, half, make it 50%. So if that is fine, then the business is viable. So
mhm.
supposedly, whatever cost estimates you are putting, always do it 3 times and see that capital you have. Now,
Yeah.
initially, in spite of you having raised funds or not raised funds or being bootstrapped or not, always slow down or go down on the, the cost should be always in your control,
Mhm.
because after the funding also the startups have failed.
Yeah, we can
That
see
could
so many
be,
example
yeah,
nowadays. Yeah.
being exhausted of the capital. So there are two things over here. If you are funded, you have to spend, and if you don't spend, you would see your competitors running away with the uh, piece of the cake,
So,
pie of the cake.
Rajan, the point, my point was that we are talking about that the number of startups were coming up in India, and also you mentioned that a good chunk of them right now focusing on the sustainable
Yeah.
as a product category.
so
So yeah, so if you can just how
so
India
there are
is stepping up onto
So
this.
there are 3,300 startups who have registered as, or who are working on climate change or renewable energy.
Hmm.
And I also have become an angel investor.
Okay.
Recently, I've invested in few startups, and my preference is again clean tech and environment eco-friendly startups. If you see the people themselves, in spite of not because just because of the opportunity in the sector, but people are sensitized to think towards that as being one of the prime most stream to
Hmm.
start a venture, because from the home that climate is at stake.
Yeah.
As I told, that world today faces two most biggest challenges: health and environment. I mean, I don't need to convince you with facts and figures.
Yes.
It's very
Very,
visible to
very.
you if you just come out of your home and you see whichever city you are living in. We know what happened in Bangalore, the
Uh,
construction in the lake. We know what happened a year back in Uttarakhand, the landslides.
yes.
So the constructions are not planned. I mean, you cannot survive on this earth because of the limitations of the resources, and the consumption is just moving towards beyond the limit if you do not go sustainable. So if you want to actually survive first and then be happy, you have to definitely move towards sustainable starter, industry. Clean tech, renewable, if you see, prominently and evidently has grown huge. Especially EV is the darling of investors these days. And the most innovation that is going to happen in the space, any space, is due to the technology also, is EV. Now, by 2030, that is my estimate without any research, is India two-wheelers will be completely EV, and
EV.
2035, major chunk, 3, 4, and heavy vehicles will be EV.
Hmm.
And that EV energy, if it is again charged from the fuel, it will not work. So solar is revolutionizing a huge. Reliance is, thinking of making batteries. Adani Green Energy, we know. Tata Power is now going towards. So there are big and small players who are moving towards, all the renewable, clean tech and healthier segment of the industry. So there is a huge opportunity for the startups. One, there is already a competition in the nascent stage, I would say. If someone thinks of some unique solutions, or even not unique solutions, are near to what is in the market solution, and goes ahead funding their, putting their money, I mean, there is a huge opportunity over there.
So my last question, Rajan, that what's your future plan now? So you right now you're merged with some bigger entity. We can see lots of stuff happening at your end. So what's the next plan?
So I'm already moving towards my next plan, is that I am mentoring a startup, logistics and hyperlocal logistics and last mile logistics services, and it is doing well. I was their first client, by the way, 2 years back, and I want to shift it to completely EV. So again, making it a sustainable startup. I want to mentor the startups. That's my next plan, because if a startup has someone who holds its hand initial days, then the startup can avoid the mistakes and grow faster. That is my vision, and not because out of making money out of the mentoring the startup, but I it's my passion. I mean, I like doing it, and that gives me a good amount of satisfaction. In spite of running my own venture, I'm still doing it. Angel investing also is my passion, because I'll tell you, apart from all this, that I've been a seasoned equity investor myself since last 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So, doing investment, long-term investment through research made me go into angel investment. So that's my future plan. And yeah, clean tech and sustainable will always be close to my heart.
Simple. Yeah, definitely. It's a great journey, Rajan. That because see, we can see that 60-70% of the startup, they going towards the technology because it's very easy to get funded. But when you started such a business, I'm not sure how many investor they are looking at it so profitable, but it's such a great journey that I am sure that all our audience will get to learn, especially the bootstrap, because when startup get funded, we all celebrate, all the media they celebrate, but no one sees the journey from where it started and what are the stuff that we are not supposed to do as a founder or entrepreneur. Thank you very much, Rajan. For your point of view, share your stories, your journey, and I'm sure that our audience will definitely get to learn lots of nuances from this conversation.
It was pleasure talking to you, Arindam, and thanks to Vision Board Biz Anecdotes, for this conversation. I mean, it always, makes you feel back home learning again while talking also.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.